Dark and difficult times lie ahead. Soon we must all face the choice between what is right and what is easy. But remember this. You have friends here. You're not alone.
Hola, comrades! Today's topic of interest, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The fourth entry in the world-conquering franchise, Goblet of Fire features Rowling's most splendid prose and is perhaps the best case that can be made for her being a genuinely good writer. It was turned into what I've come to realize is the second best film in the Harry Potter franchise, behind The Prisoner of Azkaban. It's a sumptuous, elegant film that may not reach the heights of Cuarón's phantasmagorical yet intimate treatment of the franchise, but nonetheless manages to not only hold up the substantial thematic heft of the book, which is much longer than those that preceded it because it needs to weave together two compelling narratives, one about the magic and splendor and awkwardness and confusion of Harry's true entry into adolescence, and the other about the cold and abrupt and brutal death of his childhood, but tease out that heft better with an achingly poetic direction, and the single best film score of the entire franchise. Harry Potter as a whole works as a Bildungsroman, or coming-of-age tale, but this is most clear in Goblet of Fire. It is the exact middle of the franchise. The three books before it, despite their disparate tones, are all about children. The three books after it are all about young adults. This is the book that bridges the gap. This is an incredibly difficult burden, but Goblet of Fire, surprisingly, is able to not only manage it, but provide what I see as the single most accurate and telling description of what it means to lose one's youthful innocence. While the series' slower pacing can work against it at points, here the meditative tempo is absolutely essential. This story needed to be a whole book. The key transition from a blissful childhood to a turbulent adolescence is crafted through a series of other, supporting transitions. Some of these are standard adolescent transitions. For the first time, Harry has a crush on a girl, Cho Chang, and wants to take her to the Yule Ball, this gorgeously elegant and elaborate dance held to celebrate the unity between the three schools competing in the Triwizard Tournament. However, his heart is broken when he learns that she has already agreed to attend the ball with his older and more experienced rival, Cedric Diggory. To fourth-year Harry, this is a crushing blow, but from a longer-term perspective, it is the mere start to the romantic subplots that pervade the later entries in the Harry Potter series. He eventually has that romance with Cho, then breaks up with her before finding his true love and the woman he will marry, Ginny Weasley, Ron's younger sister. Despite his jealousy of Cedric, he does not hate the man, for Cedric is humble and down-to-earth, while also being one of the most talented and respected students in Hogwarts. The Yule Ball itself marks the epitome of this softer, more traditional entrance into young adulthood. Steeped in tradition and ceaselessly beautiful, the Yule Ball is far from a typical first dance for a young teenager. Rather, it is an idealized version. This is the classy, classic image of what nervous, idealistic kids that age imagine their first dance as being. Instead of cliché music and glow sticks, there are fabulous ice sculptures and an elevated sense of importance. However, even as this sequence provides the idealized dance experience, it also subverts that experience. While there are characters who enjoy the Yule Ball, such as Ginny and Neville, who share a long and wonderful night, the main trio are not among them. Neither Harry nor Ron get to take the people they truly love, while Hermione sees her fairy tale knight with the handsome and skilled Victor Crumb spoiled by Ron's puerile pettiness. Despite this, it is harmless at best, and all three emerge from the experience stronger in the long term. Not all of adulthood's embraces are so innocuous. The driving plot of the book revolves around the Triwizard Tournament, this ancient competition held between the three great wizarding schools. For entrance into the tournament, students must stick their name in the titular Goblet of Fire, which then chooses a candidate from each school. 3 students are called, those being Fleur, Krum, and Cedric, and all is proceeding according to plan until the Goblet of Fire unexpectedly produces a 4th name, Harry Potter. As students under 17, the age of adulthood in the Harry Potter universe, were not allowed to insert their names, this is scandalous, leading to him becoming a more controversial figure. This is good preparation for his role as the school pariah in Order of the Phoenix, but it leads to intense questioning. First from Dumbledore in a moment that infamously plays out differently in the films than it does in the books, and later from Ron. The Dumbledore moment has become mimetic thanks to passels of fundamentalists apparently not realizing that there's nothing inherently wrong with movies making changes from their source material, but it's the Ron moment that has the longer-lasting impact. Up to this point, Harry and Ron have been incredibly chummy. They've had their differences of opinion, but the strength of their bond has never been in doubt. But here, with their entrance into adolescence, they have their first great fight, as Ron does not believe Harry is telling him the truth. He believes that Harry intentionally entered his name into the Goblet of Fire, and is refusing to tell him how. The fight is a little silly, but hey, so are a lot of fights between teenagers, especially young teenagers. This temporary falling out with Ron does not compare, however, to the challenges that Harry must face in the Triwizard Tournament. In the first 3 books, Harry would always wriggle out of his challenges, or they would be made possible by special tricks. Nothing is too difficult for him to handle. Think of the Phoenix and the Sword of Gryffindor and the Sorting Hat in Chamber of Secrets. Here, however, the challenges are much fiercer, and a major thematic reason for that is that he is being forcibly entered into a tournament intended for older students. This is a hauntingly literal example of him being plucked from the reassurance of childhood and dropped into the cold uncertainty of young adulthood. He doesn't know as many spells as Cedric. Despite his reputation, he's far from a trained wizard. Aside from his knowledge of the Patronus charm, which is impressive, his level of learning is far below that of Hermione and his competitors in the tournament. He needs help, and while he gets it, it is from Barty Crouch Jr., who disguises himself as Professor Moody to gain Harry's trust and infiltrate the school. Crouch stuck Harry's name in the Goblet of Fire, then did everything in his power to rig the tournament so that Harry would win. When Harry touches the cup, he learns that it is a portkey, and he is taken to the graveyard where his blood is seized and used to revive Voldemort. There are multiple levels of betrayal here that help bury the identity of Harry the child. The most obvious of these is the personal betrayal. Yes, Harry has had horrible defense against the dark arts teachers in the past, including Quirrell, who served as a host for Voldemort, and Lockhart, who is not involved with Voldemort or the Death Eaters, but who is presented first as a vapid egotist before revealing himself to be a dangerous fraud who almost removes Harry's and Ron's memories. But Harry trusted this fake Moody, both because he helped Harry and because the real Moody was an acclaimed Auror. That not only was this Moody not a hero, but was not even Moody at all, is a crushing blow to Harry. He gave this supposed Moody his trust and was betrayed. Then there is the institutional betrayal. This has nothing to do with Harry and everything to do with Hogwarts. Despite the obvious appeal of a wizarding school, Hogwarts has proved that it is unworthy of idealizing. It is nothing less than an exceedingly dangerous place. Ginny Weasley nearly died there in Chamber of Secrets, and in Season 3 it was patrolled by Dementors, these evil creatures of darkness who attempt to suck your soul out of your body. However, never before in Harry's schooling experience had the Hogwarts administration been fooled on such a grand level. Not only did they allow a vile Death Eater to teach at their school, but the cup that was the grand reward secretly led to the revival of the greatest dark wizard of the age. While the failure of institutions is demonstrated more thoroughly and effectively in later books, this is the start of Harry not being able to trust in Hogwarts any longer. Finally, we have the betrayal of past experiences. Here again, there is a sharp divide between the early books and the late books. Both books 1 and 2 ended with evil being kept at bay. In 3, Sirius Black is still considered a criminal, but he's set free. In 4, however, Harry loses, and he loses badly. He has failed to prevent the revival of Voldemort despite his best efforts. After this, Harry will never again have a straightforward victory. The end of 5 is technically a win because the Ministry is forced to accept that Voldemort is back. But Harry and company were still tricked by the Death Eaters. At the end of 6, Dumbledore dies, and while Voldemort is defeated at the end of Deathly Hallows, this is not without great cost. Everyone from Tonks to Lupin dies. However, none of these betrayals signal the death knell for Harry's childhood as definitively as the death of Cedric Diggory. This is probably the most poignant and haunting moment in the entire Harry Potter series. While Dumbledore's death mattered more narratively and represents Harry's final break from Hogwarts, Diggory's death is more symbolically relevant in terms of Harry's character development. Seeing him killed is the moment where Harry goes from being a famous and loved child to being a nervous, angst-ridden, and uncertain young adult who is forced to face the pitch-black darkness of the adult world. Cedric was better than him. Cedric was smarter and funnier and more capable. While I'm only mixed to positive on Harry's relationship with Cho Chang, I love how that relationship fails partially because he will never be Cedric. She's still thinking about him. Cho wonders wistfully what would have happened if Cedric had known the spells Harry is teaching Dumbledore's army. She wonders if he would have survived. This leaves Harry in the excruciatingly uncomfortable position of telling her what aches at him, which is that Cedric did know these spells, and that he was a very talented wizard, but Voldemort was better. Cedric's death would have been tragic if he was a wizard of low skill and no charisma because of the shock and horror of watching Voldemort, whose revival Harry was unable to stop, kill a person in front of him. But the tragedy is amplified by who Cedric was. He was a greater wizard and a greater person than Harry, and Harry knows this.
Cedric Diggory was, as you all know, exceptionally hard-working, infinitely fair-minded, and most importantly, a fierce friend.
He can't complain too harshly that Cho is still thinking about Cedric when he still sees Cedric in his nightmares. Cedric's death is terrifying for the same reason that Harvey Dent's downfall is. He was unbelievably talented and righteous and most of all moral, but none of it matters. If someone like that can die, what chance does Harry have? The impenetrable invincibility that he had believed he had, this sense that he would overcome whatever problems his quests threw at him, is shattered. Harry is forced to accept that the world has changed by the conclusion of Goblet of Fire. Voldemort is back, and nothing can be as before. But Harry has also changed, personally. No longer is he this destined kid who goes on whimsical adventures. He has become an anguished young adult who is still in the thrall of hormones, but must nonetheless endeavor to strike down evil. There is no turning back. He can only face his future.
Harry, take my body back, will you? Take my body back to my father.
Let go. Sweetheart, you're ready. Let go.
Goblet of Fire grows on me the more I watch and read it. There are a lot of fantasy coming-of-age stories, but they typically involve some test of bravery. A sword must be reclaimed, or a monster must be struck down. This is a lot different. It's a tragedy. Despite its sumptuous scenery, it's a much darker take on the coming-of-age tale. He does not willfully enter into adulthood, rather he is dragged into it. He cannot afford to be a child anymore. Too much rests on his shoulders. Harry Potter is actually very smart about using its grandiose, magical problems as an extension of more personal and grounded problems. Adolescence is a rough time because one does not have the knowledge or the power of an adult, but is forced to handle adult responsibilities. In Harry Potter, these responsibilities are far grander, being about saving the world from darkness. He's not ready for this, and much of Order of the Phoenix and even the Half-Blood Prince deals with him being made to step into a role he doesn't know how to fill. Harry Potter does not become a young adult by virtue. He becomes one because his childhood died along with Cedric. So if you liked what you saw today, consider donating to my Patreon so I can produce even more magical content. Also, don't forget to like and comment and subscribe, all that resoundingly important stuff. Adios, comrades!